I spent Mhm. All right. So again, when it comes to working on your infographic, you should have already taken down some research. Remember, your research comes from these pages here, right? So you're supposed to choose one of these different topics, right? So you could have been working on immigration or gun violence or the environment or gender, climate change, freedom of speech, plastic pollution, race and ethnicity, or voting rights. And then this last sheet, it just has more articles. So you're supposed to take down notes, which you should have put on this infographic. Right, so these are the note sheets. You should have been using this note sheet here. And then what you should be here now, essentially, is taking that information and then placing it here on this infographic. So you're just going to type over this template. This is a template, which is basically an infographic about something else. So on the top section, you're going to write your title. You can put a little bit of information here. And then these 5 categories is where you're going to put your information. Um, your images, you would simply click on this and then replace the image with something. Right, so say you're dealing with gun violence, so maybe you would put like automatic weapons or something. And then you would find your weapon here, click on it, and then, I don't know, say you wanted that one. You would hit replace, and then it replaces the picture here. Right, so again, your topics, so whatever it is that you're going to be writing about, the title goes here. Underneath, this is where whatever your 5 things that you're going to say about your topic, and then you have to have at least 3 sentences underneath. Does anybody have any questions about that? Preguntas. Does anyone have a question about what to do at all? Any confusion? Anything at all? Good, sweet. All right. When we're done with the reading, that's what you guys are going to be working on. All right. So now we're going to read. So we are on this chapter. It's 50 miles south of home. Did somebody raise their hand or something? I heard a click. Somebody had a question. Yes or no? Or is that somebody just turning off the volume or something? All right. Make sure you are focused. Again, we're gonna read this. Gonna read like 6 chapters. Again, these chapters are super short, so it's not that big a deal. All right. So remember, this story is about this girl, Billy Joe. She's living in Texas, in the Panhandle in the 1930s. But again, if you look at history in the 1930s in the Texas Panhandle, it was filled with drought. So drought is when there's no rain. So if you don't get rain and you're living in an area where you do nothing but farming, you're going to be dealing with people who can't make a living, and then just like really crazy conditions. Again, even without this drought, the country's going through a depression itself. We just got out of World War I, and people have to pay for the war. There's no jobs. Everything's kind of like crazy and messed up. Um, so this is a continuation of this girl, Billy Joe, living down there in the south. 50 miles south of home. In Amarillo is a city in Texas. Wind blew plate glass windows in, tore electric signs down, ripped wheat straight out of the ground. Okay, so this is basically telling you about not only do this area have like drought, they also have like tornadoes. So basically, she's telling a story about how 50 miles away from her house, tornadoes basically destroyed a bunch of stores and ripped the lights and stuff down. All right, next chapter: rules of dining. Dining being eating. Ma has rules set for setting the table. I place plates upside down, glasses bottom side up, napkins folded over forks, knives, and spoons. When dinner's ready, we sit down together and Ma says, "Now." We shake out our napkins, spread them on our laps, and flip over our glasses and plates. exposing neat circles, round comments on what life would be without dust. So why are they flipping their stuff over and hiding the utensils? Why are the plates upside down and the cups upside down?
So that it doesn't get dust.
Yeah, exactly, right? So this whole area, if they don't flip the stuff over, it just gets covered in dust, which is kind of crazy to think about. If you had your plates outside in your house, that dust would get all over it. Daddy says the potatoes are peppered plenty tonight, Polly, and chocolate milk for dinner, aren't we in Clover? He's actually making a joke, but what's really happening to their food? What is really happening to the food? It says the potatoes are peppered plenty and the chocolate milk for dinner. What does that really
They're
mean?
rotting.
What's that?
They're rotting.
Not rotting. Something else is happening to the food.
They're being seasoned.
With what?
Pepper
Not pepper. No. What's happening to the food?
or chocolate.
Dust.
Dust. Yeah, there's dust all over it. So again, they tried keeping their stuff clean, but it doesn't matter. The dust is getting on their stuff anyway. It's kind of crazy. When really all of our pepper and chocolate is nothing but dust. Okay, kind of crazy. I heard word from Livy Killian. The Killians can't find work. Remember, Livy was the little girl who left to go to California. So they're finding out that the family that left, they can't find work. They can't get food. Livy's brother, Reuben, 15 last summer, took off thinking to make it on his own. So the younger brother just left the family because he's, I guess, tired of it all. I hope he's okay. With a baby growing inside Ma, it scares me thinking, where would we be without somewhere to live? Without some work to do? Without something to eat? At least we've got milk, even if we have to chew it. Oh, it's kind of disgusting, right? The milk's all like thick because of the dust. So remember too, during this time period, this is we heard earlier that the president is FDR, right? Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and during this time, a lot of the supports that we have now in our society, like welfare and Social Security, and like all these programs that help people, all were created because of this depression, right? So basically, a lot of like services that we have now that help people were created because of how bad things were back then. All right, breaking drought. So again, drought being there's no water. That's when it doesn't rain. After 70 days of wind and sun, of wind and clouds, of wind and sand, after 70 days of wind and dust, a little rain came. So what's wind and sun, wind and clouds, wind and sand an example of? It's a type of figurative language. Who remembers that? What is that called? Wind and sun, wind and clouds, wind and sand. What is that an example of? What is that called? Does anyone recall? Jeffrey, are you saying something?
An example. Is it repetition?
That is repetition. Awesome job there, Mr. Chico Ribbon. That is repetition. Now, again, the author is using repetition here to kind of show you how like wind is an issue here, like strong winds. So the last chapter you saw in Amarillo, Texas, it destroyed the town. Here you're seeing basically that it's coming over and over and over again, and only a little bit of rain comes. All right, dazzled. Dazzled means to be like super impressed or in awe of something, right? Something like it just takes your eye. It's dazzling. In the kitchen, she's my ma. In the barn, in the field, she's my daddy's wife. But in the parlor, ma's something different. She isn't much to look at. So long and skinny, her teeth poor. Her dark hair always needing a wash, but from time to time, I was 4. I remember being dazzled by her whenever she played the piano. Daddy bought it, an old Kramer, they're talking about the piano, his wedding gift to her. She came to this house and found gaps in the walls, a rusty bed, no running water, and that piano gleaming in the corner. Daddy gets soft eyes standing behind her while she plays. I want someone to look at me that way. On my 5th birthday, Ma sat me down beside her and started me to reading music, started me to playing. I'm not half so good as Ma. She can pull Daddy into the parlor even after the last milking. When he's so beat he barely knows his own name, and all he wants is a mattress under his bones. You've got to be something to get his notice that time of day, but Ma can. I'm not so half so good with my crazy playing as she is with her fine tunes and her fancy fingerwork. What's that an example of fine tunes and fancy fingerwork? Fine tunes, fancy fingerwork is an example of what? Who remembers what that is called? Fine tunes, fancy fingerwork.
Alliteration.
That is correct, Miss Pena. Awesome job. But I'm glad enough. I'm glad I'm good enough for Arlie, I guess. So, what is it that's dazzling in this chapter? Something was dazzling the whole time. What was it? Has to do with the father. What dazzled the father? What was the thing that was dazzling? Who remembers what it was? What dazzled? What was the thing that dazzled in the chapter? What was taking the attention of the father this chapter? Miss Galindo, do you know, Gisela? What is the thing that took the attention? You guys can hear me, right? I feel like the connections have been crazy all day. What is it that's taking the attention? Anybody? It says she can pull Daddy into the parlor. What is it that's pulling Daddy into the parlor? Mr. Jimenez?
The mom.
Yeah, it's the mom, but it's actually not just the mom. What is the mom doing, which is importante? Very important. It's not the mother itself, it's the mother doing what? What is the mother doing that is dazzling? Jason, Abarca, do you know? What is the mom doing in this chapter? What is she doing? She's doing something. What is she doing? You guys keep getting kicked in and out. It's weird.
She's playing too.
Yes, she's playing the piano, right? So kind of similar to, kind of ironic that this is real similar to the last story that we read. So the mom is really super skilled at playing, that even though the father is so beat from working hard outside, she still is kind of like entranced. All right, next chapter, debt. What does debt mean? DEBTS. What is debt? And you don't pronounce the B in, I'm sorry, the BT sound, right? It's just
Like
debt.
money that you owe.
Yeah, exactly. So debt is something that's owed. And generally, when we think of something that's owed, it's usually money, right? Daddy is thinking of taking a loan from Mr. Roosevelt and his men, Mr. Roosevelt being FDR, to get some new wheat planted where the winter crop has spindled out and died. Mr. Roosevelt promises Daddy won't have to pay a dime until the crops come in. Right? So again, um, the whole country is going through a giant depression. So because of it, the president puts all these things into place. One of them being money that farmers could use to stay afloat. Daddy says I can turn the fields over, start again. It's sure to rain soon, wheat's sure to grow. Ma says, what if it doesn't? Daddy takes off his hat, roughs up his hair, puts the hat back on. Of course it'll rain, he says. Ma says, Bay, it hasn't rained enough to grow wheat in 3 years. Daddy looks like a fight is brewing. He takes the red face out of the barn to keep from feuding with my pregnant mother. So the father and the mother are fighting over whether or not they should take money from the government to continue farming. Now, again, most farms, right? You get rain. It's just a part of like, well, what's going on. But remember, this was the a period of time where, for some reason, there was just no rain. It was like a giant drought. I asked Ma how, after all this time, Daddy still believes in rain. Well, it rains enough, Ma says, now and again, to keep a person hoping. But even if it didn't, your daddy would have to believe. It's coming on spring, and he's a farmer. Right? So again, it's almost like this idea, like this guy's whole life has been farming. So without the ability to farm, it's like his whole life is over, right? Because this is what he does. This is how he's been living his entire life. All right, continuing. Foul as maggoty stew. Arlie Wanderdale. Remember, Arlie Wanderdale was the guy who asked her if she wanted to play in the recital. Arlie Wanderdale said the rehearsals for Sunnyside shouldn't take me out of school more than twice next week. When I told Ma, she got angry about my missing school to play piano for some show. Me and Daddy were trying our best to please Mom, for fear of what it might do to the baby if we don't. I don't know why she's so against my playing. She says school is important, but I do all right in school. I know she doesn't like the kind of music I play, but sometimes I think she's just plain jealous when I'm at the piano and she's not. And maybe she's a little afraid of me going somewhere with the music she can't follow, or of the music taking me so far away one day I'll never come home. What's that an example of? Of the music taking me so far away. What is that an example of?
Personification.
Yeah, that is personification. Good. So again, you can see the mom is mad at. Well, she's mad at her mother. Why is she mad at her mom? What does Billy Joe want to do?
Because the mom doesn't want her to play.
Yeah, exactly. The mom's not letting her play the piano. And again, you can kind of see that the mom doesn't want her to be out of school. And then she's also thinking, well, maybe that's not it. Maybe my mom just doesn't want, is just jealous of me, or maybe my mom doesn't want to see me go. Um, I'll never come home. Whatever the reason, she says I couldn't do it. So the mom's saying no. Arlie had to get somebody to take my place. I do as she says. I go to school, and in the afternoons I come home, run through my chores, do my reading and my math work at the kitchen table, and all the while I glare at my mom's back with a scowl foul as maggoty stew. That's an example of what? A sentence as well. Scowl foul as maggoty stew. What type of figurative language is that? What is that? The last sentence. Glare back at Ma's back with a scowl foul as maggoty stew. Something. But it's a comparison using like or as, which is called what? Miss Reyes, do you know? Yeah, that is correct, Mr. Jimenez. It is a simile with an E at the end. Alright, state tests. When I got home, I told Ma our school scored higher than the whole state on an achievement test, and I scored top of 8th grade. So she's doing ridiculously well at school. Ma nodded. I knew you could. That's all she said. She was proud, I could tell, but she didn't coo like Mad Dog's Ma, or go on like Mrs. Killian's used to do. Daddy says, that's not your Ma's way, but I wish it was. What is this girl hoping that her mother would do?
Show more affection.
Not affection per se. I guess it's kind of part of it. What did she just do and her mom didn't do anything for? What is she asking for? Not necessarily. Like, affection's kind of like a hug. I don't think she wants a hug. She wants something else. What does she want? Starts with the P. She wants praise, right? So she wants her mom to basically kind of say, like, yeah, you did a great job, right? She didn't do that at all. I wish she'd give me a little more to hold on to than I knew you could. Instead, she makes me feel like she's just taking me in like I was so much flannel dry on the line. So she feels like she's not being appreciated. All right. This is the last chapter that we're going to look at. Fields of flashing light. I heard the wind rise and stumbled from my bed down the stairs, out the front door into the yard. The night sky kept flashing. Lightning danced down its spindly legs. What kind of figurative language is that? The night sky kept flashing, lightning danced down its spindly legs. The night sky kept flashing, lightning danced down its spindly legs. Lightning dancing is an example of what? That is personification, that is correct. I sensed it before I knew it was coming. I heard it, I smelled it, tasted it. Dust. So again, this is an example of dust storm. While Ma and Daddy slept, the dust came, tearing up fields where the winter wheat. What's that an example of? Where the winter wheat. Where the winter wheat. It's an example of what? Where the winter wheat is an example of what? Same thing as Sally sells seashells on the seashore. What is that called? Where the winter wheat.
Alliteration.
That is alliteration. Good job, Benya. Set for harvest in June stood helpless. That's actually personification there. I watched the plants, surviving after so much drought and so much wind. I watched them fry, or flatten, or blow away, like bits off cast-off rags. That's a simile. It wasn't until the dust turned towards the house, like a fired locomotive. Locomotive's another word for what, if you guys know what that word means. What is a locomotive? What is a locomotive? Where is a locomotive? You should know what a locomotive is. Very important word. Starts with a T. What is a locomotive? If you all know where Burger Hut is in Perth Amboy, you should know what a locomotive is. What is next to Burger Hut in Perth Amboy?
A restaurant.
No, a train. A locomotive is a train. Burger Hut is a restaurant, but right next to it, right behind it, is a train. And I fled. So this girl's running away from this dust storm right now. Barefoot, breathless, back inside. Another example of alliteration. It wasn't until the dust hissed. What's that an example of? Hissing. Hissed.
Personification.
New. Hissed. Start with an O. Hissing.
Oxymoron.
No. Oxymoron is two things next to each other that are opposite. Hissing. Hissed. What is that called? When words sound like they're eating.
Onomatopoeia.
There you go. That's correct. So it wasn't the dust hissed against the windows until it ratcheted the roof that Daddy woke. He ran into the storm, his overalls half hooked over his union suit. It's another example of alliteration. Daddy, I called. You can't stop dust. Ma told me to cover the beds, push to scatter rugs against the doors, dampen the rags around the windows. Wiping dust out of everything, she made coffee and biscuits waiting for Daddy to come in. Sometime after 4, rubbing low on her back, Ma sank down into the chair at the kitchen table and covered her face. How was she probably feeling right there?
Nervous.
Yeah, nervous, sadness, something along those lines. Daddy didn't come back for hours. Not until the temperature dropped so low that it brought snow. Ma and I sighed grateful, staring at those dirty flakes. So they're happy about the snow. Why are they happy about snow? Why are they happy about snow? What does snow give you?
Because it doesn't rain.
Yeah, exactly. So snow is basically just cold rain, so they're happy about it. But our relief didn't last, so they're happy about it, and then all of a sudden they're not happy because the wind snatched the snow right off the fields, leaving behind a sea of dust. Waves and waves and waves of dust rippling across our yard. Daddy came in. He sat across from Ma and blew his nose. Mud streamed out. Right, so it's kind of hard to believe, but these like dust storms are kind of like crazy. He coughed and spit out mud. If he had cried, his tears would have been mud too. But he didn't cry, and neither did Ma. Right, so again, if we look at these dust storms, and not dust storms, right, you can kind of see how like they just completely engulf an area. Right, you can kind of see that this one has like a better perspective. So this is like the only shot you can take because once that dust comes into the area, it just completely blanks out everything. It's just like being in darkness. So these giant dust storms would come into the town and just completely destroy it. Yeah. So that's basically what it looks like. And this is basically what happened to their farm. All right, so you have some questions to do, Socrative.